Ladies and gentlemen, to understand how to address the behavior of a narcissist, we must first recognize what drives them. At the core of narcissism lies a fragile identity, one that relies on external validation to maintain a facade of superiority. These individuals avoid accountability at all costs, weaving illusions to protect themselves from the discomfort of reality. Our goal, however, is not revenge or cruelty, but rather to employ the power of truth and boundaries to compel self-awareness. To address narcissistic behavior effectively, it is critical to understand the role that boundaries play in disrupting their patterns. So on this Friday, as we get ready for Season 2, I'm bringing you another interview in our series of great conversations about narcissists are driven by a relentless need for control, often rooted in deep-seated insecurity. They seek to dominate the emotional and psychological dynamics of their relationships, thriving on the ability to manipulate others. This manipulation is not always overt. Sometimes it is subtle and insidious, manifesting as guilt-tripping, gaslighting, or creating dependency. The purpose of setting boundaries is to dismantle this dynamic without escalating conflict. It is not about fighting back with the same tools of manipulation, but about creating an unshakable foundation of self-respect. In essence, are lines that define where your responsibility ends and another person's begins. For someone dealing with a narcissist, boundaries are particularly crucial because they disrupt the narcissist's perception that they can control you. A lack of boundaries is like an open invitation for exploitation. It signals to the narcissist that their behavior will go unchecked, giving them permission to continue their toxic patterns. Establishing boundaries, however, sends a clear and powerful message. Your actions affect me, but I will not allow them to define me. The process of setting boundaries begins with clarity. You must first recognize the behaviors you find unacceptable. This could include constant criticism, excessive demands, or attempts to control your decisions. Once you identify these behaviors, the next step is to communicate your boundaries firmly and without emotional volatility. For example, if a narcissist habitually interrupts your plans to prioritize their needs, you might say, "I value my time and commitments. I can no longer rearrange my schedule to accommodate last-minute changes." The key is to be direct yet composed, as any sign of emotional vulnerability can be used against you. The challenge with setting boundaries is that narcissists rarely respond positively. In fact, they may resist, test, or even retaliate against your efforts. This is because boundaries threaten their sense of dominance. However, their initial reaction is not a reason to retreat. Boundaries are not about seeking their approval. They are about protecting your mental and emotional well-being. Consistency is crucial. If a narcissist pushes against your boundary, you must uphold it without exception. This persistence signals that you are serious, and over time, it conditions them to understand that their usual tactics will no longer work on you. So one of the most profound aspects of boundaries is their silent power. By refusing to engage in the narcissist's games, you remove the emotional fuel they thrive on. Narcissists are experts at drawing people into cycles of conflict where they can assert control and gain attention. When you set a boundary and disengage from unnecessary drama, you rob them of this opportunity. This quiet strength often unsettles them more than direct confrontation, as it forces them to grapple with the realization that they cannot dictate your reality. Boundaries are an act of self-preservation and empowerment. They create a protective barrier between you and the toxic behaviors of the narcissist, allowing you to maintain your sense of self. Through boundaries, you reclaim your agency and disrupt the very mechanisms that narcissists use to maintain their dominance. It is not a battle, but a statement. I respect myself too much to allow this behavior to continue. In that statement lies your power. The truth is an immensely powerful force, and when wielded effectively, it can disrupt even the most carefully constructed illusions of a narcissist. Narcissists thrive in environments where truth is obscured, twisted, or ignored. They operate by creating narratives that support their inflated sense of self and by denying, minimizing, or deflecting any responsibility for their actions. However, truth, when consistently presented, becomes a mirror they cannot escape. It forces them to confront the reality of their behavior, even if only subconsciously, and creates a discomfort that lingers beneath their defenses. It forces them to be self-aware of their actions, their thinking, and their feelings. To use the truth as a tool, it is essential to approach the matter strategically. Confronting a narcissist with accusations or heated arguments is often counterproductive. Narcissists are skilled at deflecting blame, shifting focus, and provoking emotional reactions to regain control of the situation. Instead, the most effective way to use the truth is through calm, factual, and non-confrontational communication. For instance, if a narcissist frequently makes promises they fail to keep, you might state, "You said you would do this by a specific time, but it didn't happen. I'm curious why." This approach focuses on the facts without attaching blame or emotion, making it harder for the narcissist to twist the narrative. The key is to let the truth stand on its own, without embellishment or drama. Narcissists rely on chaos and emotional escalation to maintain control, but the calm presentation of truth disarms them. It creates a situation where they are faced with an undeniable reality that cannot easily be manipulated. Over time, this repeated exposure to truth can create cracks in their facade. While it is unlikely to lead to an immediate transformation, narcissists are notoriously resistant to self-reflection. It plants seeds of awareness that may grow over time. One of the reasons truth is so unsettling to narcissists is that it exposes the gap between their self-perceived and their actions. Narcissists often view themselves as superior, capable, or deserving of special treatment, but their behavior rarely aligns with these beliefs. When confronted with the reality of their actions, they are forced to reconcile this discrepancy, which is a deeply uncomfortable process for them. Even if they do not admit it outwardly, the awareness of this gap can haunt them internally. Another aspect of leveraging truth is consistency. Narcissists are adept at denying, rewriting, or forgetting events to suit their narrative. By consistently presenting the truth, you counteract their attempts to distort reality. This may involve calmly reminding them of their previous actions or statements when they attempt to rewrite history. For example, if they claim to have never said something hurtful, you might respond with, "Actually, I remember you said this during our conversation last week." While they may not acknowledge it, the reminder forces them to confront the reality of what occurred. The power of truth lies in its ability to disrupt the narcissist's illusions while strengthening your own sense of clarity and agency. By refusing to participate in their distortions and maintaining a steadfast commitment to reality, you create an environment where their manipulative tactics lose effectiveness. The truth, presented with calm confidence, becomes a quiet yet persistent force that challenges their control and fosters an atmosphere of accountability. Consequences are one of the most powerful tools for addressing narcissistic behavior because they disrupt the narcissist's carefully maintained sense of control and entitlement. Narcissists often operate with the belief that their actions will not have meaningful repercussions. They thrive on manipulating others into tolerating their behavior, avoiding accountability, and enabling their sense of superiority. However, when real, tangible consequences are introduced into their lives, it forces them to confront the impact of their actions. This can be unsettling and even haunting for them, as it disrupts their ability to maintain their constructed image of invulnerability. The first step in leveraging consequences effectively is understanding what they are. A consequence is not an act of revenge or punishment. Rather, it is the natural outcome of a narcissist's behavior. For example, if a narcissist frequently violates your trust, the consequence might be that you no longer share personal or sensitive information with them. If they continuously disrespect your time, the consequence could be that you stop making yourself available on their terms. These consequences are not about harming them, but about protecting yourself and establishing a clear message. Their actions have limits and repercussions. What makes consequences particularly effective is their ability to introduce discomfort into the narcissist's life in a way they cannot easily ignore or deflect. Narcissists are often adept at dismissing emotional appeals or rational arguments, but when they encounter consequences that directly affect their sense of control, they are forced to take notice. For instance, if a narcissist in a workplace setting consistently undermines their colleagues, and those colleagues begin to withhold cooperation or support, the narcissist will likely feel the impact on their ability to achieve their goals. This creates a scenario where their behavior begins to cost them something tangible, whether it be relationships, professional success, or social standing. It is important to enforce consequences consistently. A common mistake people make when dealing with narcissists is setting boundaries or outlining consequences but failing to follow through. This inconsistency signals to the narcissist that their behavior is ultimately tolerated, which reinforces their belief that they are immune to accountability. To be effective, consequences must be non-negotiable. If a narcissist learns that you will stand firm in enforcing the outcomes of their actions, they are more likely to modify their behavior, at least in your presence. One of the most profound aspects of consequences is their ability to create self-reflection in narcissists, even if unintentionally. While narcissists are typically resistant to introspection, the discomfort of facing the results of their actions can plant a seed of awareness. For example, if they lose access to important relationships, resources, or opportunities due to their behavior, they may be forced to question whether their actions were worth the cost. This does not guarantee that they will change, but it creates a psychological disruption that they cannot easily dismiss. In employing consequences, it is also essential to detach emotionally from the outcome. Narcissists often seek to provoke emotional reactions, as it allows them to shift focus away from their behavior and onto your response. By enforcing consequences calmly and without unnecessary explanation, you maintain your power and deny them the opportunity to manipulate the situation further. Consequences are not just about holding narcissists accountable, but also about reclaiming your own sense of agency and self-respect. They disrupt the patterns of manipulation and entitlement that narcissists rely on, creating an environment where their behavior no longer yields the same results. Over time, this disruption can become a powerful force, challenging their illusions and forcing them to face the reality of their actions. When dealing with a narcissist, confrontation often feels like the most direct path to addressing their behavior, but it is rarely effective. Narcissists are highly skilled at turning confrontations into opportunities to reinforce their control. They may escalate the situation, manipulate the narrative, or provoke emotional responses to regain the upper hand. Because of this, direct confrontation frequently becomes a fruitless and exhausting cycle. Instead, a more effective approach involves promoting accountability through indirect methods, ways that subtly encourage self-awareness without engaging in head-on conflict. The first step in this process is to detach emotionally from the narcissist's behavior. Narcissists often seek emotional reactions from others because it gives them a sense of power and importance. When you react emotionally, whether in anger, frustration, or hurt, you provide them with the attention they crave and allow them to shift the focus away from their actions. By remaining calm and composed, you disrupt their ability to manipulate the situation. This emotional detachment is not about suppressing your feelings, but about refusing to let their behavior dictate your emotional state. One effective way to hold a narcissist accountable without confrontation is to reflect their behavior back to them through neutral statements or questions. For instance, if they accuse you of being selfish while refusing to consider your perspective, you might calmly say, "It's interesting that you feel that way. Can you explain how my actions impacted you?" This approach forces them to articulate their reasoning, often exposing the lack of substance behind their accusations. By maintaining a tone of curiosity rather than defensiveness, you shift the dynamic in a way that subtly challenges their narrative without provoking an aggressive response. And that's skill. And that's scientific study. Another powerful strategy is to enforce accountability through actions rather than words. Narcissists are adept at manipulating conversations, but they cannot argue with your behavior. For example, if they consistently violate your boundaries, you can respond by limiting your availability or reducing your engagement with them. If they repeatedly fail to follow through on commitments, you might stop relying on them for support. These actions communicate a clear message. Their behavior has consequences. Unlike direct confrontation, which they can twist or deflect, actions speak for themselves and are harder for them to manipulate. It is also important to shift the focus from changing the narcissist to protecting your own well-being. Narcissists are unlikely to undergo significant change unless they choose to do, and even then it is a complex and prolonged process. Instead of investing energy in trying to fix or reform them, focus on creating an environment where their behavior has minimal impact on you. This might involve building your emotional resilience, seeking support from trusted relationships, or engaging in activities that reinforce your sense of self-worth. By refusing to engage in confrontational dynamics and instead promoting accountability through subtle, indirect methods, you disrupt the narcissist's ability to maintain control. Over time, this approach not only protects your well-being, but also creates an environment where the narcissist is forced to confront the limitations of their behavior. While it may not lead to immediate change, it sets the stage for a healthier dynamic, one where you hold your ground without being drawn into their toxic cycles. Empowering yourself is the most transformative way to navigate a relationship with a narcissist, and it is also the most unsettling for them. Narcissists thrive on dependence and control. They seek to dominate the emotional and psychological dynamics of their relationships, drawing strength from the vulnerability and compliance of others. When you shift your focus away from them and toward your own personal growth, you not only reclaim your agency, but also disrupt the very foundation of their power. Empowering yourself is not about overpowering the narcissist. It's about creating a life that is grounded in your own values, free from their toxic influence. The first step toward empowerment is understanding your worth and asserting your individuality. Narcissists often work to erode your confidence by criticizing, belittling, or undermining your sense of self. This behavior creates a dependency, making you more likely to seek their approval or validation. Breaking this cycle requires a deliberate effort to reconnect with your own identity. Spend time reflecting on your values, passions, and goals. What brings you joy and fulfillment outside of your interactions with the narcissist? By rediscovering and prioritizing these aspects of yourself, you begin to rebuild a sense of self-worth that is independent of their approval. Another essential aspect of empowerment is developing emotional resilience. Narcissists are skilled at provoking emotional reactions to maintain control. They may use guilt, anger, or even charm to manipulate your responses. Building resilience involves recognizing these tactics and refusing to be drawn into their emotional games. This does not mean suppressing your feelings, but rather learning to process them in a way that is healthy and constructive. Practices such as mindfulness, journaling, or speaking with a trusted friend or therapist can help you manage your emotions without allowing them to be hijacked by the narcissist. Setting and maintaining boundaries is a powerful act of empowerment. Boundaries are not just about limiting the narcissist's behavior. They are about defining what you will and will not tolerate in your life. When you set clear, firm boundaries and enforce them consistently, you send a strong message. My well-being matters, and I will protect it. Narcissists may resist or test your boundaries, but their reactions are irrelevant. What matters is your commitment to upholding them, as this demonstrates self-respect and reinforces your sense of autonomy, your truth. And I don't care how much other people object, because that's not truth in your eyes. Another way to empower yourself is to focus on building a strong support network. Narcissists often isolate their victims, creating an environment where they are the sole source of validation and connection. By reaching out to friends, family, or support groups, you can counteract this isolation and gain perspective on your situation. Surrounding yourself with people who respect and value you can provide the encouragement and strength you need to maintain your independence. Empowerment means shifting your focus from the narcissist's actions to your own growth and happiness. Narcissists often consume a disproportionate amount of attention and energy, leaving little room for personal development. By redirecting this energy toward your own goals and aspirations, you reclaim control over your life. Whether it's pursuing a career goal, developing a new skill, or simply engaging in activities that bring you joy, prioritizing yourself sends a clear message to the narcissist. Their influence over you is diminishing. Empowerment is about reclaiming your life and stepping into your own strength. It is not a strategy to punish or provoke the narcissist, but a way to protect your well-being and build a life that reflects your values and priorities. In doing so, you not only free yourself from their toxic dynamics, but also create a reality where their attempts to control or manipulate you lose their power. This shift is deeply unsettling for a narcissist, as it forces them to confront the reality that they no longer hold the central role they once occupied in your life. Wow. Silence can be one of the most powerful tools when dealing with a narcissist. Narcissists thrive on attention, whether positive or negative. They are fueled by reactions, arguments, justifications, defenses, or emotional outbursts, because these responses reaffirm their sense of power and control. When you choose silence, you deny them the validation they seek and create an unsettling void that forces them to confront their own behavior. Silence, in this context, is not about passive avoidance, but about strategic disengagement that protects your energy and shifts the dynamic. One of the reasons silence is so effective is that it disrupts the narcissist's typical patterns of interaction. Narcissists rely on provoking reactions to manipulate others and maintain dominance. For example, they may criticize you, make inflammatory statements, or push your boundaries to elicit an emotional response. When you respond with silence, you deny them the satisfaction of controlling your emotions. This lack of reaction not only frustrates them, but also forces them to face the reality that their tactics no longer work on you. Silence can also be a form of boundary setting. By refusing to engage in toxic conversations or arguments, you communicate that you will not participate in dynamics that are harmful or manipulative. For example, if a narcissist attempts to draw you into a blame-shifting argument, You might choose to remain silent rather than defend yourself against their distortions. This refusal to engage sends a clear message. I will not allow you to dictate my emotional state or pull me into unnecessary conflict. Over time, this consistent use of silence can condition the narcissist to understand that their behavior will no longer yield the desired results. Another advantage of silence is that it gives you the space to process your emotions and responses without the immediate pressure of interaction. Narcissists often create chaos and confusion, making it difficult to think clearly in the moment. By choosing silence, you give yourself the opportunity to step back, evaluate the situation, and decide how to respond in a way that aligns with your values and priorities. This deliberate pause helps you regain control over your reactions and prevents you from being drawn into impulsive decisions that could further empower the narcissist. Silence does not mean complete withdrawal from communication, but rather a selective and intentional approach to engagement. You can use silence to avoid escalating conflicts, protect your boundaries, and focus your energy on what truly matters. For example, you might choose to remain silent during a heated argument, but later address the issue calmly and on your own terms. This approach ensures that your voice is heard without being drowned out by the narcissist's manipulative tactics. Perhaps most importantly, silence is a form of self-empowerment. It shifts the focus away from the narcissist and back onto yourself. By refusing to feed their need for attention and validation, you reclaim your energy and create space for your own growth and healing. Silence is not about avoiding confrontation or denying your feelings. It is about prioritizing your well-being and refusing to engage in interactions that deplete your emotional resources. For the narcissist, silence can be deeply unsettling. It deprives them of the control and attention they crave, forcing them to confront a reality where they no longer hold the power they once did. While this may not lead to immediate change in their behavior, it creates a dynamic where you are no longer a participant in their toxic cycles. In this way, silence becomes a powerful tool for disrupting their influence and reclaiming your own sense of peace and autonomy. In dealing with narcissists, the path to reclaiming your power and protecting your well-being lies not in fighting fire with fire, but in strategic, calm, and intentional action. Through setting firm boundaries, speaking and living the truth, enforcing consistent consequences, promoting accountability without direct confrontation, empowering yourself, and wielding the power of silence, you disrupt the narcissist's control and undermine the very mechanisms they use to dominate and manipulate. These strategies are not about changing the narcissist, an outcome that is largely beyond your control, but about reclaiming your autonomy and fortifying your sense of self. By shifting the focus away from their behavior and onto your own growth, values, and priorities, you step out of their shadow and take back control of your emotional and psychological space. This process may unsettle or even haunt the narcissist, as it forces them to confront the reality that their actions no longer yield the influence they once held over you. Your goal is not vengeance or domination, but liberation. Liberation from the cycles of manipulation, emotional entanglement, and control. By standing firm, maintaining clarity, and prioritizing your own well-being, you create an environment where the narcissist's toxicity cannot thrive. In doing so, you not only protect yourself, but also set an example of strength and self-respect, showing that their actions, no matter how calculated or harmful, will not define you. The power lies in your hands, and it is in your decision to rise above their games that true freedom is found.